In the late 1980s, Kurt Cobain was a relatively unknown man from a small logging town in the Pacific Northwest. Using his creativity, sense of rhythm, and unbelievable ear for melodies, he was launched to worldwide stardom in 1991. To millions, Kurt Cobain will forever be a superhero, and his weapon of choice for the Nevermind tours was his Fender Jaguar. In this video, I will outline this famous guitar and its unique modifications. I will speak about how he acquired it and who may have owned it previously. I will also talk about some of my favorite shows in which it was featured and its impact on guitar players and the Fender Corporation. Kurt bought his vintage Sunburst Fender Jaguar through the LA Recycler in 1991. Although at that time, the Jaguar did not hold a particularly high value, it came with an anvil flight case. That led the band to believe that this left-handed guitar was previously owned by a professional touring musician. Fender Jaguars traditionally have two single-coil Jaguar pickups in them, but someone before Kurt had routed the body out and installed DiMarzio humbuckers. A DiMarzio Super Distortion humbucker was put in the bridge position, and a DP103 PAF humbucker was put in the neck position. Both humbuckers were cased in black plastic pickup rings. The bridge had been replaced with a Tune-O-Matic style bridge, which are usually found on Gibson guitars. An additional volume knob was added, as well as Telecaster style control knobs. Gotoh tuners were installed, but the original vintage style holes remained. And finally, a three-way toggle switch was installed, eliminating the two slide switches which normally control the on and the off for each of the two pickups. The neck has dot inlays with a nice white binding on the edges. The headstock is smaller than a traditional Jaguar headstock and shaped similar to a Stratocaster. The Fender Spaghetti logo present was incorrect for vintage Jaguars. In fact, it was actually never used on a Jaguar until modern Jaguars. It should have the Fender Transition logo. For these reasons, many people conclude that the neck had been replaced with a custom neck at some point. In an interview with Guitar World, Kurt stated that he owned a '66 Jaguar, although Fender, who claimed to have access to it when they designed their Cobain signature guitar, said it was a 1965. Fender's Justin Norville stated, "The binding and pearloid dots are both period correct to 65, but I think a left-handed 24-inch scale Jag neck was kind of an odd request back then. It's just one of those oddities that came out of the factory that wasn't quite right." And that's a cool theory, but I've actually never seen any evidence to support that statement of Fender actually cutting Jaguar headstocks like that. And not to mention the incorrect headstock logo, which is usually a huge red flag to collectors that something is amiss. I do wish that they would have pulled the neck and took pictures of the date stamp on the neck, which would have provided insight into whether it was actually a Fender neck and what year it was made. By now you have probably seen the footage of Martin Jenner, the former Cliff Richards guitarist, playing what appears to be Kurt's left-handed Jaguar, sporting all of its distinct modifications, including the extra strap button in the 1980s. The only difference is that Martin's guitar has a neck with block inlays instead of dot inlays. If this is in fact Kurt's guitar, then that could support the notion that Kurt's guitar is in fact a 1966, and the neck was replaced prior to 1991. The 1966 model Jaguars had both styles, as that is when they started to transition to block inlays. What exactly is the neck on Kurt's Jaguar? What year is Kurt's Jaguar? The world may never know. Kurt's Jaguar was first used in August of 1991 on their European tour. On September 16th of 1991, Nirvana played an in-store set at Beehive Records in Seattle. Beehive was selling the first copies of the band's second album, Nevermind, just days prior to the release. The band did not expect there to be a large turnout, yet they were surprised to see hundreds of people gathered outside the store hours before they played. From the amateur footage of this event, Kurt's Jaguar looks amazing. Kurt broke a string playing Drain You, one of the first songs, and then switched to his Lake Placid Blue competition Mustang while the string was being changed. One of those things that amazes me about this show is how close the audience was to the band. Imagine being 2.5 feet away from Kurt Cobain performing. The Jaguar continued to be used mostly as his number one throughout the end of 1991, including shows at Rotterdam in the Netherlands and Trees Club in Dallas on October 19th. Both shows had plenty of mayhem, chaos, and destruction. The Trees Club show is best known for Kurt smashing his Mustang into a soundboard after being unhappy with the sound mix after the song Polly. and then later on hitting the bouncer with the butt of his Jaguar for pulling his hair, trying to get him out of the crowd after he jumped off the stage during Love Buzz. This was followed by the bouncer punching Kurt and then Dave leaping over the drums like a ninja to restrain him. Amazingly, they were somehow able to all get it together and finish the show. This show proved how quickly Nirvana became popular. Within just a month of Nevermind's release, a jam-packed 600 to 1,000 person small club was no longer suitable to accommodate them. Other notable shows for the Jag include the famous Paramount Theater show in Seattle on Halloween of 1991, and the Paradiso show in the Netherlands on November 25th as part of another European tour lasting up until the last week of December. After that, they went back to the States and played some West Coast shows. On January 10th, 1992, Nirvana came to New York City and the Jaguar was used for about half the songs at MTV Studios. On January 11th of 1992, Nirvana made their first appearance on Saturday Night Live. Kurt used his Jaguar for Smells Like Teen Spirit. The band did not disappoint during this primetime opportunity. This is one of the best live performances of the song for me. Everybody was on point, especially Dave Grohl's drumming, which was so hard, yet seemingly timed perfectly. The tempo, tone, and vocals was very true to the album version. For the second song, Territorial Pissings, he switched over to a black Strat with a white pickguard, as he intended on bashing the headstock into a speaker cab after concluding the song. Nirvana then set out on a tour of Australia, followed by another European tour in the summer, consisting of arena, festival, and stadium shows. On August 30th, 1992, Nirvana played the Reading Music Festival in the UK for the second year in a row, although this time they had a prime-time headlining spot. Rumors were going around at this time that the band was breaking up due to Kurt's health and addictions and would not be performing. The Jaguar was used mostly, and a few songs were played on a Sunburst Stratocaster with a white pickguard and hot rail-style single-spaced humbucker in the bridge. This guitar appeared to be given by Kurt to a fan at the end of the show, although some speculate that it was recovered by a member of the security team and then used for other shows. 3 songs were played at this show that would end up on In Utero. These songs were Dumb, All Apologies, and Tourette's, although dubbed The Eagle Has Landed. This was something Nirvana would often do. In fact, most Nirvana songs were played at live shows before being recorded and released. After the Reading show, the band came home and played 5 dates on the West Coast and just one more for 1992 on October 30th in Argentina. Kurt continued to use the Jaguar, although sparingly, in 1993. The last appearance was on August 6th of 1993 at the King Performance Center in Seattle. Nirvana then took a well-deserved break in 1993 and only played 5 shows from January up until the In Utero tour started in late September. So where's Kurt's Jaguar now? Well, very few people know for sure. Many speculate that it's in the hands of Kurt's estate or his widow. Others say his daughter, Frances Bean, has it. Some say Eric Erlander of the band Hole has it now, as he was seen playing it flipped to right-handed in the video for Doll Parts. In my opinion, the latter is less likely to be true. I'm just glad it hasn't ended up at an auction like his unplugged Martin acoustic guitar did. The popularity and legacy of this guitar, as well as Fender offsets in general, has risen in recent years like never before. While the Jaguar debuted in 1962 as a top-of-the-line model, during its initial 13-year production run, it did not sell nearly as well as the less expensive Strats and Tellys. Initially, it was marketed towards surf musicians, and it failed to reach the success of its older brothers. It wasn't until the 80s and 90s when the demand increased due to punk, indie, and alternative bands like Nirvana started using them. Kurt's guitar had a big impact on the Fender Corporation. Aside from Kurt Cobain's signature Jaguar, Road Worn, or New Old Stock NOS, Fender now has regularly made Jaguars with double humbuckers, 2 pneumatic bridges, and 3-way toggle switches.